Hey y'all, Cindy with Brett and Cindy's Tea and Living. Just gonna give an intro into a new, I don't know how many videos it'll end up being, kind of series. This summer I kind of did some lessons from the garden, and I really enjoyed some of those. Most times it was just when I was in the garden it hit me, and I just videoed what I was thinking. Well, in our garden picking video, you might have noticed my voice wasn't exactly right. And Brett was making reference to condition I have called conversion disorder. At least that's what the doctors call it. I'm still trying to figure it out. I've been to many different doctors trying to figure it out over the course of the last, 4.5 years. We've been trying to figure this out. And this is the latest diagnosis. It has one called dysfunctional neurological disorder or conversion disorder. It pretty much is when the brain's had enough, kind of shuts things off a little bit. It causes a physical condition to an overstressed brain, pretty much. I always described it as I felt like my brain wasn't firing on all cylinders, is what I'd tell Brett, 'cause, he's a mechanic, he understands that. And when the doctor asked me to describe it, I would say it just feels like my brain's shutting down. And I had MRIs, I had CTs, I have had EEGs, and I went to, 3 or 4 different neurologists, been to psychologists, because the very first time it happened, everybody thought I'd had a major stroke. I still remember that day. It was March the 9th of 2016. Spent a couple of days in the hospital, and they said they didn't know. It was stress-induced neurological event is the way I was discharged. But since in my past I've had a couple of heart surgeries, cardiologists are always called in when I go to the hospital. Cardiologist looked at me and went, medical mystery. Because when I went for a follow-up, I was like, what did they ever figure out? Because no one ever told me anything. And since that point, I have spent the last 4.5 years trying to figure this out. Brett and I got to the point we thought it was the migraines was a problem. Ended up to a migraine specialist this last year. She's like, we have the migraines under control. I can't explain why. The MRIs, the CTs, the EEGs, everything they've run says there's nothing going on. There's no stroke. There's no medical reason for it. So she recommended I go to a psychiatrist. Of course I was like, no. I've seen them. Went to a counselor trying to figure all of this out. The last 2 I went to said there wasn't nothing they could do for me. So they were psychologists. And I have found out there apparently is a major difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist. Because when I started explaining everything to the psychiatrist, she sat there for a moment, she looked at me, she said, I think I know what's going on. I'm like, what? Okay. She said, dysfunctional neurological disorder. I'm like, She goes, we call it conversion disorder. I'm like, okay. What does that mean? She said, it's a condition, it's a psychological condition where your brain is tired, and so it's putting out these physical elements to get you to... I said, basically it's shutting down. She said, basically it's shutting down. And I'm like, So my saying it was shutting down was accurate. That was back up in what? May of this year, I think? No. It was around March. It's it's about the same time. Because I went back to see her and around May and she got laid off from the office. The medical group that she was with laid her off due to cutbacks. So I'm like, oh great, I finally found somebody who understands this stuff, and they laid her off. So we're now on a trip to figure all this out. Seeing the nurse practitioners in the same office, and she's still trying to catch up because all of the workload of the office landed on her table. So I'm really hoping in the weeks to come I fully understand this more, because everything I have read about it, the first step to treatment is understanding it. Brett encouraged me after we made the video of the October picking and the one with the grounded peppers. I'm not plainly spoken in. He encouraged me to make a video series, regardless if I talk plain or if I slur my speech. And so we happened to catch myself tonight to do an intro where I'm more plain spoken. So invite you along on this trip. And if you understand this thing, or you know somebody who has it, and you've got ideas and suggestions, please give them to us in the comments, because I've had this for 4 years. I've had issues with it for 4 years, over 4 years, and I'm really ready to understand it and conquer it. And I appreciate everyone who is praying, and a lot of them, we've got a lot of praying for you on the videos. I appreciate that so much. So sit back, hang on. Any comments you've got, I'm welcome. Please give them. I'm anxious to hear what you have to say. Share and join us on this interesting trip we're on. Have a great evening. God bless.